Lucia Guerra spooned a final line of shimmering cinnamon across the milk's silky surface and watched the pattern bloom. The concentric arcs, flecked with nutmeg, curled inward like a seashell that led to some place deeper than foam. She tilted the cup in the steamer's glow, satisfied. The customer, a middle-aged man in a gray gilet, tapping relentlessly at two phones, barely looked up when she called his name, but the moment he lifted the mug to his lips, his thumbs froze. A slackness eased across his shoulders, the kind that descends when thoughts loosen and drift. Lucia wiped the wand, studying him from behind the La Marzocco. 30 seconds passed, maybe 40, before he murmured, "I never told her where I buried the stack. 80 grand, right under the oak by exit 29. Thought I'd go back before winter." He blinked, horrified, as if he had caught himself talking in his sleep. His gaze snapped toward Lucia, fearful and confused. Then the cafe's phone rang, and she turned away, heart hammering. That was confession number 7 of the week. 2 months earlier, Lucia had discovered that patterns mattered more than she'd ever guessed. She'd been chasing bigger tips, felt stuck in an unremarkable life where the most adventurous act was swapping Honduran beans for a Sumatran single, or late one night, scrolling forums of obsessive baristas, she found a thread describing hypnoglyphs, run hand-drawn spirals, and latticework believed to trigger microtrances. The post had one reply: "Tried it on a mocha, creepy accurate. He told me he still loved his ex, never came back." Lucia laughed, screen glowing against the brick wall of her apartment, but curiosity gnawed. She remembered her grandmother's stories of the curanderas of Oaxaca, women who blended coffee grounds with spells. Mostly folklore, mostly. It began as a parlor trick. She etched tight, parallel curves, the kind that appear to move when you stare too long, then sprinkled espresso dust in a gradient from light to dark. She served the cup to her roommate, Claire, who within 3 sips admitted she still snooped on her ex-girlfriend's Venmo transactions every Friday. Claire had never mentioned the ex's name before that night. She clapped a hand over her mouth, yelling, "What did you put in this?" "Just milk," Lucia said, but she saved the pattern's photograph to her phone. The next morning at the Gilded Bean, Lucia recreated the design on a tourist's cappuccino. The tourists calmly confessed that she'd swapped her sister's negative pregnancy test for a positive one as a joke and had been guilt-ridden ever since. Lucia nearly dropped a tray. Coincidence, she told herself. Except the coincidences kept coming. A college kid admitted plagiarizing an entire thesis. A retiree whispered that he'd faked knee pain for disability checks. The confessions arrived like clandestine letters, each addressed to no one, yet spoken aloud. Lucia developed variations: herringbone flourishes for mild-mannered customers, double spirals for the chatty, nested chevrons outlined with microfoam for the obstinate. She discovered that oat milk muted the effect, coconut milk intensified it, and that decaf killed it entirely. Eventually she could gauge how deep a person would sink by how quickly the pattern darkened after pouring. She told no one. Not the other baristas, not Claire, certainly not owner Mr. Blackwell, who hovered around profit margins like a hawk with an MBA. The cafe's cramped back room became her laboratory, fragrant with cinnamon and caution. Then Chiara walked in. Monday mornings at the Gilded Bean were a churn of commuter anxiety, but Chiara radiated calm. She was maybe 28, gold nose ring, a book of Rilke poems peeking from her tote. Lucia loved customers who read real books. She loved, secretly, the shape of Chiara's smile. "1 oat latte, light foam," Chiara said. Lucia nodded, trying not to grin too obviously. She selected her finest cup. Hand-thrown ceramic, midnight blue glaze, a hairline crack that looked like a shooting star. Normally, Lucia avoided the hypnotic designs for oat milk results, too unpredictable. But something in Chiara's unhurried gaze beckoned. Lucia traced a braid of lines that curved in on themselves like a Mobius strip. She dusted cocoa along the ridges, breathing carefully so the powder fell in perfect gradients. The design shimmered, an impossible hallway spiraling toward a vanishing point. Chiara accepted the cup between both palms, inhaled, and took a sip. Her eyes widened, softened, as if the cafe's ceiling lights had dimmed behind her pupils. Lucia braced herself for the torrent. "My sister," Chiara whispered, "didn't jump." She set the mug down, trembling. "Everyone thinks she jumped from the bridge last February. I let them think so, but I was there, I saw." Lucia grabbed a towel, pretending to tidy the counter, her own breath shallow. Customers shuffled by, dog-eared newspapers rustled, an espresso shot hissed. Chiara hadn't stopped speaking, voice low and unspooling. "She lost her balance climbing the railing," Chiara said, fingers white on the mug, "and I was filming the river for a photo assignment. She slipped. I could have dropped the phone, grabbed her hand, but I froze, Lucia. I watched her fall and did nothing." Tears streaked Chiara's cheeks now, the words pouring like steam from valves. Lucia felt an ache so deep it was almost maternal. She wanted to vault the counter, to hold Chiara and say nothing at all. But the line of customers stretched to the door, and Mr. Blackwell was eyeing wait time metrics on the register screen. Lucia leaned forward. "Take a breath," she whispered. "You don't have to say more." Chiara blinked, as if woken from a dream, confusion knitting her brows. She noticed Lucia for the first time, truly saw her. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, mortified. She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, gathered her bag, and vanished into the autumn glare. The incident rattled Lucia for days. She'd heard confessions, yes, but not raw tragedy like that. The memory of Chiara's breaking voice followed her through each shift. At night, she replayed it in bed, imagining ways she might reach out. An apology, a free drink, a note slipped under a coffee sleeve. Yet she feared exposing herself, feared legal trouble, or worse, that Chiara would think she'd manipulated her, because she had. Lucia resolved to retire the designs. She made ordinary leaf rosettis. Tulips, some playful bears. Tips decreased, but so did the weight in her chest. Then the regulars began asking. They didn't call them hypnoglyphs. They said the fancy pattern, the vortex thing, the labyrinth swirl. One man joked his latte was truth serum, and others laughed, unaware how near they were to the mark. Yet business surged. Word spread of a cafe where lattes tasted eerily honest, though no one articulated why. Tourists posted photos. Spill the bean. Mr. Blackwell adored the trend, installed pendant lights for better Instagram shots, and gave Lucia a 50-cent raise. She told herself she could still skip the designs, she could just pour hearts. But the tidal pool of curiosity, of possibility, dragged her back. She rehearsed boundaries. No designs on teenagers, no designs on anyone who looked medically fragile, no designs after 3 p.m. when nerves fray. She kept to them, mostly, but each time she swirled a secret loose. Adrenaline flared like a match. Short, hot, addictive. One Thursday, Detective Marco Ibanez entered. His badge glinted at his belt, though his hoodie tried to hide it. Lucia had seen him once before, questioning staff after a purse snatching outside. He struck her as the sort of man who counted sugar packets. "Black coffee small," he said. Then, studying the chalkboard specials, he added, "Actually, make it a latte, the swirl kind people talk about." Lucia's pulse skipped. Surely rumor had reached law enforcement. People revealing crimes over froth? He must be curious. She could refuse, but he'd wonder why. A barista refusing a paying customer's order? Suspicious on its own. She chose a mild design, simple concentric arcs, barely hypnotic. She served it, watching his reflection in the chrome pitcher rinse. He sipped. His eyelids faltered, fluttered. He inhaled deeply. "I swapped tags on the evidence," he said into the cup's rim. "Didn't want my cousin to rot for life." Switched his jacket with a John Doe's from lockup. Nobody checked. Lucia staggered backward, bumping the grinder. Detective Ibanez stiffened, eyes darting, awareness returning like a flood. He set the latte down, color gone from his face, and walked out without waiting for change. The kaffa buzzed around her, oblivious. Lucia's hand shook so badly she spilled a shot onto her apron. She realized in one horrid instant that whatever she'd done, she was involved now, an accessory after the fact to confession she'd elicited. She had become a repository of unasked-for knowledge, a vessel brimming with other people's guilt, and there was no valve to drain its weight. Night moan. Humonic. That night she dreamed of oceans of milk atop which floated swirling galaxies of nutmeg and secret ink. Voices rose from the foam like bubbles, popping against her ears. She woke before dawn, made coffee, left it untouched. In her notebook she wrote, "I need help." Then, but who would believe me? She found the answer staring from the ceramic honey jar on her desk. Chiara's name scrawled on the back of a receipt she'd slipped there weeks ago. When Chiara had paid, Lucia had glimpsed her whole name on the credit card screen. Chiara Rossi. A quick search had shown Chiara was a graduate photography student at the art college 6 blocks away. Lucia had kept the scrap like a guilty charm. Now she typed an email. Subject, an apology. Barista from Gilded Bean. She admitted she'd done something unethical, but didn't detail the hypnotic art. She asked if Chiara would meet for tea at the Botanical Gardens, somewhere neutral, open, safe. Chiara replied within an hour. "I've wanted to talk too. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Under a canopy of glass and creeping vines, Lucia confessed more than she expected. She explained the patterns, the accidental discovery, the swirl that had unlocked Chiara's secret. She expected anger, maybe a lawsuit, maybe a slap. Instead, Chiara listened, threading fingers through the strap of her camera bag. "I felt relieved," Chiara said softly. "Horrified, but relieved. I'd been drowning in that silence," she exhaled, watching koi glide beneath the pond's surface. "But you can't just pry people open. It's not fair." "I know," Lucia said. "I tried to stop. Then a detective confessed to tampering evidence. I can't sleep knowing this." Chiara studied her. "Why tell me?" "Because you're the first person I heard who actually needed to speak, and because I think you'll understand the weight." They sat quiet, the greenhouse dripping morning condensation. Finally, Chiara said, "What if there was a way to make it right? Record the confessions anonymously, pass them to someone, a journalist maybe." "No," Lucia said, shaking her head. "I'd still be exploiting them, and I could get arrested. Plus, some secrets are just sad." Chiara looked at the camera in her lap. "I photograph fractures," she said. "Cracks in sidewalks, broken mirrors. Because flaws make the world honest. Your lattes, your art real flaws. Maybe people need that mirror, even when it hurts." Lucia frowned. "Or maybe I'm just playing God with steamed milk." They left it there, promising to think. Chiara squeezed Lucia's elbow before parting, a gesture of faith or forgiveness. Lucia couldn't tell which. Days passed. Lucia poured Simple Hearts again. She practiced restraint. Meanwhile, guilt fermented inside, carbonating. She eyed customers and wondered, what truths lurk behind your small talk? The silence felt heavier than the spilled secrets ever did, like closing your eyes on a battlefield and pretending it's gone. Friday morning, Lucia found Chiara waiting outside before open. She carried an envelope and a determination that bent the ivy shadows around her. "I did something," Chiara said, cheeks pink with cold. "Hear me out." Inside, over drip coffees, Chiara slid printed contact sheets across the table. They were photographs, grainy, black and white stills of cafe patrons mid-confession. Lucia's chest seized. "Were you spying?" "I sat by the window with a zoom," Chiara admitted. "I know it's invasive, but I blurred faces, and I only captured posture, the body language of disclosure. No IDs, no audio, pure gesture." Lucia flipped through images. A woman clenching her mug, mouth half open, the detective's hand trembling over a bad-shaped lump in his coat. The photos felt intimate yet anonymous, like X-rays of emotion. "I want to exhibit them," Chiara said. Title, Foam, a show about what we hide and when we let go. I'll mention an unnamed barista exploring visual hypnosis. No names, no crimes, just the concept. Lucia's throat tightened. "My boss will know it's me." "Maybe," Chiara said, "but maybe acknowledgement diffuses the power." Secrets rot in darkness, Lucia. Lucia paced near the espresso grinder, the cafe still empty, dawnlight smearing the tables. Finally she turned. I'll do it under one condition. We put up a sign. She grabbed chalk and wrote on a sandwich board. Try our sign, Petter. Side effects may include unexpected honesty. Order at your own risk. Chiara laughed. A warning label, informed consent, Lucia said, her hand steadied for the first time in weeks. To Chiara's stead. The sign made customers pause, grin, snap photos. Some ordered anyway, curious. Others stuck to plain drip. For those who chose the vortex, Lucia poured with deliberate grace, meeting each person's eyes before handing over the cup. Take a moment, she'd advise. Breathe with the swirl. Stop any time you like. Most sipped, stared, chuckled, and told small embarrassments. A lost scarf they never returned to its owner, a password they reused for everything. Yet because they had opted in, their disclosures felt cathartic, like letters burned in a fireplace. Lucia felt less like a thief and more like a guide across a rickety bridge they'd asked to cross. Occasionally, someone unearthed deeper wounds. A veteran confessed survivor's guilt. A mother admitted wishing for a different life before loving her children. Lucia listened, kept tissues behind the register, and offered water. She never judged, never recorded. Chiara's exhibition opened in November. Photos of bent shoulders and coffee rings lined a brick gallery, illuminated by track lights soft as dawn. At the entrance hung Lucia's chalkboard warning, framed. Visitors whispered, reading it, then wandered among the images. Some cried. Local press called it startlingly humane. Mr. Blackwell attended, flattered by the publicity. He pulled Lucia aside, tapping the frame. We'll get sued if somebody takes this literally. They already do, Lucia said. He laughed, thinking she joked. On the final night of the exhibition, Lucia arrived after close. Chiara stood alone, dismantling frames. The room smelled of dust and metallic hope. There's one secret I still keep, Lucia said, pulse throbbing. She held 2 lattes she'd brought from the cafe. Designs swirled identically. We can choose silence or drink. Chiara studied the cups. You first, she said. Lucia set hers down untouched. I'm in love with you, she said, voice quivering. Haven't told anyone. The confession tasted like air weightless once spoken. Relief flooded her limbs, warm and earnest. Chiara lifted her own cup, hovering at her lips. She grinned. Good, she whispered. Because I've been terrified to say the same. They left the lattes cooling on a plinth, unfinished, patterns drifting into stillness. Outside, winter pressed its chill against the city, but Lucia felt lighter than milk froth, buoyed by truth freely given, not pulled by swirl or spell, but offered, chosen, and shared.